Hey everybody, and welcome to the Stitch Sessions. It is the first day of a brand new month, and you know what that means. We are going to be revealing May's Gift of Crochet. It'll be the 5th segment in the series of our 12 Gifts of Crochet this year. And for the month of May, since we are just around the corner from Mother's Day, we thought this would be a nice tie-in as a Mother's Day gift. So May's Gift of Crochet is this really adorable crossbody grab and go bag. And I call it the grab and go bag because sometimes if you're just doing this quick grocery run or a quick jut into the drugstore, you can just grab this, throw your phone, your purse, you're gonna throw your phone, your keys, your wallet, which is exactly what I have in here now, and leaves you hands-free. And that's what I love about this design. And this is doable and perfect for beginner crocheters. This is completely done using the single crochet stitch only. We've just gotten creative with a few different ways on how to do the single crochet stitch. So I'm just going to bring it a little bit closer there so you can see we've put a little bit of a button, and then we added a little chain there for a closure, and a little embellishment on the side on the strap. And it did not take very long to make. Did it over the course of a weekend. So if you're still stuck on that last minute Mother's Day gift, you're still in time to make this a really great, easy, and super cute grab and go bag. Now don't forget, make sure to click subscribe so you'll stay up to date on all of our free tutorials. They're absolutely free. And make sure you share them with your friends. We love to share our crafts and hear from you and see what you're up to and what kinds of things you're making. So in the meantime, let's get all of our materials together and let's get stitching. Okay guys, in order to make our crossbody bag, you're going to need 1 ball of any cotton yarn. You can use acrylic, but I like cotton because it's got some strength to it and it's super easy to throw in the wash. And I happen to be using the Bernat Handicrafter cotton. This comes in balls of 42.5 grams. As always, depending on how big or small you choose to make your bag, you may need more than one of these. But one should suffice for the size I'm making, okay? And this colorway, in case you're wondering, is called Mushroom Twists. And I liked the fact that it had this white and kind of like a taupey color mixed in there. And I feel that it can pretty much match any outfit. So I've got that, as usual, a pair of scissors and a darning needle for later on. And for this particular project, I am going to be using a 5.0mm hook. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're working this bag from the top down. So we're going to start from the top of the opening and work our way down to the bottom of the bag. So I'm going to show you how we got that started. So you're going to start with a slip knot. Okay, and then we are going to chain 6. So you'll yarn over and pull through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so be careful not to chain too tightly in that first set because it'll just make it more challenging to fit your hook into those first few stitches. So just keep a kind of a medium tension. Okay, so now what we're going to do is second chain from the hook, so not this first one here. And remember, we never count the loop on the hook. We're going to go into the second chain from the hook, and we're going to do a single crochet. And then we are going to do 1 single crochet into each of these chains. So here's the very next one. So you can see why it's important not to chain too tightly. That's the second one. Here's the third. Just get rid of that there. Okay, and here is the 4th. And the last one is the 5th stitch. So I remember that we chained 6, but one of those chains counted as our turn. So in total, we're going to end up having 5 stitches from here on out. So this is going to be the top part of our bag. So eventually it's going to turn this way. And I know it doesn't look like much now, but it will. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we are going to chain 1 and turn our work. So we'll chain 1, turn our work, and now what we're going to do is right into the base of that same stitch, we're going to single crochet. And actually now we're going to work into the back loops only. So you see how I almost went in there? That's the full stitch. So if you can see those 2 loops on top, we actually only want to go into the back loop. So here you want to really watch out for. So we chained 1, so that's it right there. And so we're going to go into, let's get that out of the way. We're going to go into the back loop. And I know with this variegated yarn, it may be a little tricky to see, but there we go. Okay. And that's what we're going to do for many rows for a while. So we go into the back loop and we're just going to do single crochet as before. Okay. So I go into the next stitch, and so we're not going into the side, we're going right down the top and pick up the back loop of that stitch. And if you're still uncertain about how to identify parts of your stitch, we have a link in the description box down below on a tutorial that talks all about identifying different parts of your stitches. So in this particular case, we are working into the back loops only. And you'll hear many people talk about going into the back loops for various different projects. Okay, so we're in our last one here, and remember this was our turning chain, so it might be a little tricky, so you just have to gently nudge your way through. And there we go. And single crochet. And then just make sure that again at the end you have 5 stitches. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so when we go into the back loops, you can see, hopefully you can see, that it has pushed these front loops forward. And that's going to create a little ridge or ribbing effect, which is exactly what we want. I realize, guys, that this may be a little bit more challenging to see. So hopefully you can see how these loops are sitting out like that. Okay, and so that is row 2. So we're just going to continue on like this for 70 more rows. And the reason why I chose 70 is because I wanted to make sure that I could at least fit my cell phone and my wallet in the bag. And so I just took my phone here and I made sure that my 70 rows was enough that it can wrap all the way around this phone. So go ahead and do 70 rows and then I'll come back and I'll show you what I mean. But I'll get you started here again. So you've come to the end of row 2 here and you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and in this second stitch from the hook, because remember you just chained 1, you're going to go into that back loop and you're going to single crochet all over again. Okay, so that's what you're going to do. Into the back loops, single crochet. And so we're going to do this for a total of 70 rows. That's 70. So I will meet you when you've done your 70 rows. Okay guys, so I have done 70 rows of working in the back loops only. So now you can really see the effect of those back loops being worked. So it creates this nice ribbing effect and it also gives it a little bit of stretch. So you're going to take your work and you're going to fold it in half. And now if I take my phone here and I just place it in front, I can see that I'm going to be able to fit my phone comfortably inside my bag. So that's what I meant by getting at least the length of a phone. And as you can see, I've left some give there, some room, which is exactly what I want. Now, depending on the size of your phone or even the person that you're making it for, I always figure nowadays the phones are the biggest item. Wallets may be too, but I think this is an average size, I guess, of a wallet. Let me just quickly measure here. So this phone is just under 6 inches in length, or just under 14 centimeters. So the 70 rows done in half. So there you go. This bag is approximately 9 inches in width, which is perfect for just a little pick-me-up and run bag. Okay, so let's continue on here. So what we're going to do now that we've folded this in half is we are going to slip stitch these two sides together. Okay, so, and it doesn't really matter. I prefer my working side in front of me. Whoops. Okay. All right. Okay, so let me find that again. Okay, so my working side is in front of me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert into that very first stitch that I chained actually. But I'm going to continue on here and just work into the back loops like we've done all along. So I'm going to find the top loop of that original chain, and I'm just going to slip stitch it. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the back loop of this next stitch. Notice I didn't work the first one because I had already had one on my hook. And now I'm going to go into the very next loop. So see, this one's already been worked, this one here. So the very next one. Now these may have tightened. And again, another reason why when you do your initial chains, you don't want to get too tight. So it takes a little finagling. There we go. So I pull it through there, and I pull it through here, and this one. Careful not to split your yarn. I think that's okay. Okay, into the next one, back loop, and into the back loop there. So pull through them all. So just a simple slip stitch to secure these two sides together. So into the back loop of this one, and into the back loop of that one, and pull through. And we have one more to go. So this one's a bit snug here. It's the last one before the turning chain. And our last one right there. There we go. Okay, so we've still got our 5 stitches here. And now got it all together. And actually, once we start working onward on our bag, this little ridge is going to blend right in, and eventually we can just sew that little tail in. So now we've got the top part of our bag, and we're going to be working downward. So what we need to do actually is we need to now flip our work, and I'll show you why. Because this is going to go on the inside of the bag, and now we are going to be working. So if you're right-handed like me, I'm going to be working from right to left, and I want the front side of my stitches to face the outside of the bag. So if we stayed this way, the front side of the stitch is going to show on this side of the bag, which at the end of the day doesn't really matter. It's just a matter of how you want to start your loop. So you could start it this way and work your way down. Yeah, so it doesn't really matter, but for me, I just find that this gives it a much more uniform look. So now the officially slip stitched portion stays on the inside, and now the ridges just go really naturally right in there. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to solidify this top edging of our bag with single crochet stitches. So you will chain 1 and into, so we're basically working into the sides of all these rows. So the beautiful thing about using ridges is you can really see where the side of your row is. So I'm going to go right into the base of that chain 1, which is the side of the ridge row. So there's a ridge row and a non-ridge row. So I'm going to go right into that loop there. And I'm just going to single crochet. And some of it may be trial and error because especially if you're using variegated yarn like I am, you really have to be very comfortable with identifying where your stitches are and the sides of them. So that was the end of a ridge row. This is the end of a non-ridge row, and there's already a gap there. So I'm just going to insert my hook and single crochet. The next one is a ridge row, so they're a little bit more snug. So I'm just going to find a spot somewhere in here. Oh, that one looks good. And I'm going to single crochet into that. And then the next one is a non-ridge row. Again, there's a beautiful gap right there waiting for me. And I'm going to single crochet into that. And so now what this is going to do is it's actually going to kind of just snug this top ridge inward a little bit. Okay, so I'll do a few more with you. So the next one is a ridge row. So I'm going to find something right in there. And now a non-ridge row, so right there, it's a nice space. And a ridge row. Just going to snuggle in there. So you could go up here. I like the idea of going in there. Okay, and don't worry if you feel like, oh, it's creating some gaps there. Once the work is finished, these single crochets will start kind of snuggling in the base of that rim there. Okay, so go ahead and do that all the way around. And since we have 70 rows, you should have 70 stitches at the end. Now, don't worry if you may end up with 71, or even if you end up with 69, it's not the end of the world. It'll still look absolutely fine. But whatever count you do have at the end, we then want to make sure we stay consistent. Okay, so go ahead and do that. And I'll meet you at the end of 70 stitches, or 71, or 69. Okay, so I actually have 70 stitches. And just for this first row, I am going to slip stitch to my first stitch there. I'm just going to try and find where my first stitch is. I think that's my chain 1, but just going to try and snuggle it in there. Man, sometimes it can be pretty testy. Okay, I'm going to go in there and we're going to slip stitch it shut. Okay, so you can see now that it's already starting to kind of just snuggle this ridge in. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this tail as kind of a marker. When I fold my work, what I want to do is just as a little reminder, and I'll explain why in a second. So I am just going to put a stitch marker here. Oops, right into that one. And then just nice and easy, wherever the fold sits here, I'm going to put a stitch marker right into that one. So it may be an exact middle, or it might be just approximate, but you can always double check by
folding it in half and making sure that it sits nicely like that. Okay, so what we're going to do for this second row here is we are going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Then what we're going to do is we are going to skip 3 stitches. So remember, this is the base of this, so that's the first stitch because we've got 3 chains. We're going to skip 3 official stitches. So we're skipping 1, skipping 2, skipping 3. And into the 4th stitch, we're just going to single crochet. And we're working into the full stitches now. So we're now no longer working into the sides of rows. We're just going to insert there. Okay, so that's going to leave a little gap like that. Okay, and actually I can probably just take that out now because the gap is what I needed to see. Okay, so it will make sense, I promise you. So now what we're going to do is we're going to continue on and we're going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch, each and every single stitch, until we get to the next stitch marker. Okay, I have single crocheted right up until just before my next stitch marker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to take that out and I'm going to do the same thing I did on the other side. I'm going to skip 3 stitches. I'm going to go 1, 2, and 3, and into the 4th one I am going to do a single crochet. Okay, so there's a gap there. And there's a gap here. So you can lay it flat, make sure that it's somewhat even, which I feel like it is. And now I'm going to continue on and single crochet until I get to the beginning here. And I know you're probably thinking, I don't get what's going on here. So when you notice when I talked about the bag at the beginning, there was a little bit of an embellishment on there, and that comes from part of the strap. And so what I'm doing here, this is actually just something that I bought at HomeSense, and it came wrapped in this beautiful fabric bow, and there's so much of it, and I thought I could use this for something. So what I want to do is I'm creating these gaps in the side because eventually I'm going to feed this in through here, and it's going to fortify the side of my bag all the way down and the strap. Don't worry if it doesn't quite make sense just yet. It will later on. Okay, so right now we want to continue on and single crochet 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around and back to the beginning. I'm just coming up to the end here, and so that's where I created my gap. So I have 1 more stitch there, and I'm going to, I think that's 1 more stitch there, actually. So I'm going to slip stitch into the top of that first chain I did there. Okay. So at the end of round 2, so the round 1 of the body of our bag is just single crochets 1 into the side of each ribbed row. And then round 2 is just 1 single crochet into every single crochet except where we had our stitch markers at the halfway point when we folded this in half. And we had chained 3, skipped 3, and then continued on. So we wanted to do that to create a gap. So I've slip stitched into the first chain there. Now for row 3, I'm just going to continue doing single crochet stitches, but I am going to make sure that I follow along the gap here. So what you can do, and is what I'm going to do, I'm going to, because it's a chain 3 here, I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to go into this space, and I'm going to single crochet 3 times. So that is 1, 2, and 3. So now that really makes that space much more prominent. Then I continue on into the very next stitch, which is right there. I'm sorry guys, my camera is being funny. And again, I know this is variegated yarn, but the next stitch is right there, and I hope you can see those 2 loops. That's a thing when you have patterned yarn, is it, if you're not very experienced yet, it may make it more challenging. So keep that in mind when you're looking at all those pretty yarns and you get all excited. I've made that mistake when I was a new crocheter. But then it gets really challenging to see where your stitches are if you don't know what you're looking for. But stitch-wise, this project is a very beginner friendly because it's pretty much all single crochets we've been using. So as you can see, 1 single crochet into each stitch, and when I get to my next gap, I'm going to work into the space, 3 single crochets. So go ahead and do that, and I will meet you at the end of round 3. Okay, I'm just coming up to the end here, and I can see that's my initial gap where I started, and I'm just going to slip stitch into that very first stitch there, into the gap, into the spacing. So that is the end of round 3. So now we're working in rounds, and there's my gap there. And yep, it still sits nicely on either side. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue on, and normally I would work in the spiral round, and actually you can totally do this. Just make sure to keep a stitch marker here because we are going to create another gap. Okay, so from here on out, we don't have to worry about slip stitching. For the next few consecutive rows, we are just going to, so for now I'm going to start by chaining 1. I'm going to go back into the bottom of that stitch and do my single crochet. And now all I'm going to do is 1 single crochet into each single crochet from the previous row. So I'll just insert and pull through and insert. And then when I come back around here, I'm not going to worry about slip stitching anymore. I'm just going to continue on into the next stitch and keep single crocheting. I'm going to do that until I have the depth of the bag that I like. So for the most part, because I'm keeping this really kind of simple, I want, so that's the top of my bag. My bag is probably going to be just, if I take my measuring tape here, from the ridge anyway, it's probably going to be another 4 inches. So if I turn it this way, so that's going to be the general depth of my bag. It'll still give me some lip at the top, so there'll be some room. So basically, my phone and wallet can kind of slide down there. You can do yours around 5 if you want more of a depth in your bag. Again, this is the beautiful thing about projects like this, is you can kind of gauge as you go kind of thing. So maybe you're going to start off wanting yours fairly narrow, but then as you continue your work, you realize, oh, I might want more depth. So you just simply do more rows, or as many rounds, as you would like. So for me, I'm going to keep working until I have approximately 4 inches of single crochet rounds, and then I'm going to reevaluate and see how I feel about it. Now, so you know where the end of a round is, once you start working in the spirals, you can simply use, remember that little tail we had at the end? you can simply use that as a guide, and it also is anchoring our first gap space. So you can always use that, or if you prefer, just simply put a stitch marker every time you come back to the beginning end. But again, just to recap, we are no longer slip stitching once we come to the end. We're just going to continuously single crochet all the way around. So guys, go ahead and do that, and then I'll meet you when you've got your desired depth, and then you'll really see the bag starting to take shape. So I'll see you back here shortly. Okay guys, so I've decided to give my bag just a wee bit more depth. So I have had to break into a second ball of this Handicrafter cotton. These balls are 42.5 grams each. I don't think I'm going to use this whole thing, but we are going to see. So this one just has a little bit of a variegated coloring running through it. And what I'm going to do now, so now you can see how this is taking shape. So this is the top opening part of my bag, and I've got the two little openings here that we're going to designate for our part of our handle, which you'll see in a bit. But now what I want to start doing is creating the bottom of the bag. And we are going to continue working in the round, but now we're going to start to do some decreasing. So now, and you may want to use a stitch marker for this just to kind of help you remember where the beginning and end of your round is. So remember how I said this tail will be a good gauge for you? So, and I also want to make sure that it coincides with my two openings on the side here. So I've got this nicely folded, and I've pretty much stitched right to the edge there. So I'm just going to grab a stitch marker here, just so that I can remember where I started increasing and decreasing. And remember, we're still working in the spiral round at this point. So if we were using the slip stitch method, we wouldn't have to worry so much about finding our beginning spot again. But here we go. So what we're going to do is we are going to decrease every fourth stitch. So I'm going to actually start right away with a decrease. So I am going to insert my hook and pull through. Then I'm going to insert into the very next stitch. So I'm not going to resolve this. And I'm going to insert and pull through. So that is going to give me 3 loops on my hook. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull through all of these. So you should be able to see how these 2 stitches are now snuggled into the one as a result. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So there's 1. Here is 2. Here is 3. And now we're going to do another decrease. So I will insert my hook, pull through, then I'll go into the very next stitch. I'll insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 2. Okay, so what this is going to start doing is this will start to make the bag want to curl inwards, which is exactly what we want so that we can create the bottom portion of the bag. Okay, so go ahead and continue on with that. You're now going to do 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches, and then you are going to decrease the 4th and the 5th together. So I'm going to do that one more time with you. So I'm going to single crochet into the next stitch. So that's going to be 1, then 2, and then 3, and then your decreases right here. So you're going to insert, pull through, insert into the next, pull through, and then we'll pull through to combine both of those. Okay, so you're going to continue doing that all the way around until you come back to your starting stitch marker. So I'm doing my last 3 single crochets, and this third one is going to take me right back into where my stitch marker is. Okay, and now what we're going to do, so you can see already it's just beginning to curl inwards at this point, okay? So I'm going to just replace that stitch marker here. And these are actually not the greatest stitch markers, but they're what I've got. And now we're going to decrease into every 3rd stitch, okay? So I am going to begin again with a decrease. I'm going to insert and insert and bring these 2 stitches together. And now I'm going to do 2, 1 and 2 single crochets, and then I'm going to decrease the next one. So I'm going to pull through and pull through, and there we go. So single crochet once, 2 times, and then into the 3rd, I'm going to decrease it into the 4th. So you'll do 2 single crochets and then a decrease, 2 single crochets and a decrease for this round. And at this point, now you're definitely going to start seeing some curling in, and you can even see it right now as I do this. So you can see that it's starting to curve inwards. So if I were to sit it like this, so even on the bottom you can see it's going to start to curl in. Okay, so now it's kind of giving it this dome type of shaping, which is exactly what we want, and eventually it's going to curl right inward so we can seal off our bottom. Okay, so continue on with these decreases until we get back to the stitch marker, and then we shall continue on. 2 single crochets and a decrease. That's our formula for this round. Okay, so I've done my decrease into every 3rd stitch. Now what I'm going to do is, I've stitched right into where my stitch marker is. We are now only going to decrease at the very ends. So again, I want to make sure that I'm still, see, so you can definitely see it's buckling in. So I only want to decrease on the ends to eventually come inward. So, and folding it like that makes it super easy to see. There's my opening. So I am going to insert my stitch marker on this side over here. It's very splitty yarn. And so I will continue on, and I'm going to decrease here in the side. Let me just take this stitch marker out. And so I will decrease these next 2 stitches together. And then, oops, I will replace my stitch marker. There we go. And now I'm just going to simply continue on placing 1 single crochet into each stitch across until I get to that next stitch marker. So that's what I'm going to do for this round, is just 1 single crochet into each stitch until I get to the stitch marker, the next one, and then I will do a decrease. And I've come up to the next stitch marker, so now I shall do my next decrease. Insert, insert, pull through. I then want to replace the stitch marker and then continue on back to the first stitch marker with 1 single crochet into each and every stitch. So this project will definitely give you a great opportunity to practice your single crochet stitches. I'm just going to take my hook out for a second so you can really see that it is starting to really curl inward. Okay, so that's what's going to, so I'm trying to get it so that eventually it's going to sit. So you can really see it's curving inward. It's going to sit flat. And we're going to decrease the corners a few more times, and then eventually we're just going to seal off that bottom just like that. Okay, so continue on, do a single crochet all the way to your first stitch marker. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do another round exactly the same as this one. Once you hit this stitch marker, decrease, then 1 single crochet in each, decrease, 1 single crochet till that stitch marker. So once I finish here, I'm going to do the same thing another round again, then I'm going to meet you back here. Okay. All right, guys, so I've done yet another round, as I said before, of just doing single crochets and then decreasing on the ends. So that's 2 rounds of that particular pattern. And now as we continue on, we are going to go back to decreasing around the sides as well. So now we are decreasing in every second stitch. So after I decreased in the corner, I did a single crochet and then I decreased, which is 2 stitches together. 1 single crochet and a decrease. A single crochet and a decrease. So you can really see that these 2 stitches are coming together as one. So now what we're trying to do is just simply close that gap, close up this gap on the bottom of the bag. So 1 single crochet and then a decrease into the next. 1 single crochet and then a decrease in the next. So we are now decreasing every second stitch. Okay, so I've taken out my other stitch marker because I'm just going to do one more round now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 1 decrease in every stitch around. So that means I'm going to collect 2 stitches together basically in every stitch. So I'm just going to remove this for a second, just so I remember where I started. I'm leaving that one in. So in the very next stitch, I will just insert and decrease. I'll put that stitch marker back in, just so I remember where I started. And then I'm going to continue to decrease all the way around. So I will insert and have 3 loops on my hook and then 2 together. So the next 2 will be stitched together all the way until I get back to my stitch marker. This is my last decrease here. I'm going to take my stitch marker out and I'm going to chain 1, and now I'm actually going to just leave a bit of a tail here. I'm going to snip off my yarn and I'm going to show you guys what's going to happen. So I've chained 1 there, and then I'm just going to pull this all the way through. So I fastened off, so you can still see that there's an opening there, and that's a-okay. Because I wanted this bag to have more of an oval shape, see how it's turning into a circle? So we're going to use this long tail here to actually close that in. But because this is the outside of my bag, we're going to turn this inside out. And we are going to sew this up on the inside. Now, what I really want to remember is, these are our holes for our handle. So I still want those on the side. So that means that I still need to make sure that this folds down. Once it's folded, even though it's curling here, I still want those two openings on either side there, and that's perfect. So that means now that these stitches will line up so that we can sew them accordingly. So I will get my darning needle. Okay, just going to come down a bit here. And now what I'm going to do is I am just going to make sure that these loops match up. And I'm just going to whip stitch this closed. So I'm just going to take both the loops on the top. So I'm just going to go right through the full stitch, pull through, and then I'm going to find the next full stitch, match it up to the next one, and I'm just going to pull through. So I'm not worried about which loops I'm going in. It's not the back or the front. We're going through the whole stitch here. This is the bottom of the bag, so we want it to have a little bit of strength and fortification. And don't worry, I know right now you're thinking, but it's curling up into this cone shape. And that is okay because it will all work out once we are done. And we've got, I think we're coming up to near the end here. And I'm just going to do one more on this side here. And I always like to leave an extra long tail because I'm going to go back and continue the whip stitch just to give it some more solidification. But at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the bag outside so I can see what's happening there. Okay, so there you have it. So you can see now that it does have more of an oval shape. And when you look inside, this is going to pucker a little bit, and that's okay. I want to keep that on the inside because that is what is going to allow the bag to sit, to have a flat bottom. So if I do that, so you can see on the inside, okay, you can see that it's got just a little bit of that puckering there, and that's a-okay. But once I zoom out and you can see the bag sits there, it's going to sit nicely. So now when I look at it on the bottom, it's going to have more of a flatter bottom. And so with my extra, still a little bit of extra tail, see how there's some gaps here? I'm going to work on closing that in a bit more, just because aesthetically that's what I want to do. If you decide you want to put a liner in your bag, then it's not too much of a big deal. I'm probably not going to because I'm going to keep this project super easy and quick. But what I am going to do is I'm just going to do another little bit of whip stitching back the other way just to give it some fortification. And then I'm going to meet you when we are ready to talk about putting the handle on our bag, and then just a quick little closure here. And actually I'm going to just do a little rim row just to kind of give this a little bit of a snug closure, and then a cute little button there. So I will meet you back here shortly. Okay guys, we are almost there. So the bottom of our bag has now been sealed off. It can sit nicely on its own there, okay? And now we are just going to create a little finishing ridge round here, and then we're going to talk about the handle, okay? So we are going to begin with a slip knot. Okay, and we're going to You can pick any spot you like. I like to just start just a little bit before that tail so I can work right over it. Whoops. And we're going to do exactly the same thing we did when we worked on this side of the ribbed round. We're basically working into the sides of all of these rows. So, oh my goodness, this loop does not want to stay on my hook. Okay, so you can just find a spot anywhere. So this looks good. So this is a non-ridge row. So you have a non-ridge row and a ridge row. So hopefully you can see that. I know with the variegated yarn it's kind of tricky, but hopefully you can see that there's a ridge here, a non-ridge, a ridge, a non-ridge. So you're basically going to do one single crochet into each row here, or the end of each row. So I'm just going to do, I'm actually not even going to do a slip stitch. I'm going to single crochet right away. Okay. And I'm just going to try and work over that tail as well as this one down here. So then into the next row, it's going to be a ridge row, which is this right here. And you're going to try to snuggle your hook wherever it can fit there. And you're going to just do one single crochet all the way around. Now my next one is a non-ridge row, so usually it's a little bit easier to work into. The stitches aren't as tight. And now I'm back to a ridge row. I'm going to do a few of these just so you can kind of see the effect we're going for. The non-ridge row, which gave us this great little gap right there. Again, I'm working my short tail as I go along. I'm working over my short tail. And so that was a, whoops, I think that one was too close. So that was the ridge row, and so the non-ridge row actually should have been more along here. I mean, the main thing is to make it look somewhat even. It's not the end of the world, but, you know, you just kind of want to use what aesthetically pleases you. And then you're just going to continue on. So this is a ridge row. I'm going to insert and so there you have it. So we're going to do that all the way around. And this is, again, just creating a little bit of a solid finishing. And I'm not sure yet if we're going to do 1 or 2 rounds of this. Let's do 1 and see how it looks, and then we will take it from there. 1 single crochet into the side of each row. So I've gone ahead and done 2 of these finishing rounds, and I am very happy with how that turned out. So you've got this really cool little ribbing along the top, and as you can see, the bag sits nicely on its own. And now it's time to talk about working on the handle. So we are at that point where we had that first opening we did, and as you can see, the opening will cover the span of 2 of these ridges. So that's a good way to gauge. So let me just go over to the other opening here, and it's the same thing. We've got 2 ribbings here. So that's a great way to marker our handle so that it lines up with that opening, and you'll see why in a bit. There we go. So what we are going to do now is we are going to chain 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then what we're going to do is we are going to skip 1, 2, 3, and into the 4th stitch, we're going to do a single crochet. Okay, so now we have an opening there and an opening here. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we are going to chain 1, turn our work, and then we are going to do 3 single crochets into this spacing. So we have 1, 2 and 3. So we've got something that looks like that. Then we will chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll turn our work and we are going to single crochet into that first chain 1 we did. It might be tricky to find. If you can get that stitch, that's great. Okay, so our work is going to start looking like this. And this is what we're going to continue to do. We're going to chain 1, turn our work, and single crochet 3 times into this spacing. 1, 2, 3. So it's creating this kind of chain effect. Now, could you just single crochet 4 times across and just do rows and rows and rows? Absolutely. But there's a reason, this particular design, there's a reason why I have this opening here and then everything else from here. So then we are going to chain 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn our work and repeat it again. We're going to find that first chain 1 and single crochet into that. So I'm basically going to continue doing this until I get the length of the strap that I want. So for me, I took a measurement of how I wanted the strap to come across my body, and I will need about 47 to 48 inches. So I'm going to keep doing this formula until I get to about 47 to 48 inches. And then I'm going to talk about how we're going to then attach to this side and add the finishing touch. I mean, technically the bag will be done, but I'm going to have this just finishing touch for the aesthetic. So again, basically the formula for this pattern, I like to call it. So you've chained 1, you will turn your work, and then you will do 3 single crochets into the space. So that's always what we're going to do, 3 single crochets into that space. We'll then chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Turn our work again, and we want to find that chain 1 stitch, which is right about there. It can be a little tricky. And you want to try your best to get both loops if you can. It just gives you a little bit of extra fortification. It's not a big deal if you don't, but I'm very particular about getting both loops. So there I have it. Pull through, and then I single crochet. Okay, so it creates this really neat kind of chain look. Okay, so you're going to do that for as long as you would like your strap to comfortably come across on a diagonal to your body, or you can just leave it as a regular purse just on one shoulder. But I'm going to keep going until I hit my 48 inches, and then I'll meet you back here. We're going to talk about how to attach it to the other side. All right, guys, so here is my strap. So you're going to have something that looks like this. So you've got these, kind of looks like a ladder. So you've got your single crochets across where you did your chain 4. So mine actually measures about 37 inches. And remember how I said at the beginning when we were doing this ridge here, it tends to stretch and relax a lot. So I know I need 47, 48 inches, but this is definitely stretching out that way. So I'm stopping at 36 inches because it's actually, by the time it stretches out, it's giving me about 40 already. So, and I've kind of tested it out over my shoulder, and I do like the length. So as always, test out your projects before you marry yourself to the final product. So now what we want to do is we want to attach our strap to the other end. Remember how we had that opening there? So we have to make sure that we align it with the opening here. And as we discussed before, we can gauge it by these two ridges that go up the way there. And they coincide with these stitches. So first you want to make sure that your handle isn't twisted and it's nice and flat. And you're going to find it till you get right to the end. Now I also counted to make sure I had, now I can't remember if it's an odd or an even number of gaps, because what's going to happen is I'm going to take my little fabric here, my ribbon, and I'm going to feed it through here just to give it that extra something. So I want to make sure the last time it feeds through that it's actually going in to the bag to come out here. So I made sure that that was the case, and now I'm ready to attach my strap. So once you know it's not twisted, I'm just going to kind of get myself comfortable here and insert my hook. Oops, if I can get it to cooperate. And so once I've come to the end, I've also chained one. Okay. Oops, I think I forgot. Okay, good. I'm not twisted. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bag, find that opening. I know my two ridges are here, and the next stitch to coincide is right here. So I'm just going to insert my hook so I don't lose my spot. And I am just going to slip stitch. So I'm going to pull it through so you can see there, and then pull it through the loop on my hook. It can be a little testy. And so now I don't want you to think that we're going to work back into this, because remember, this is supposed to represent that initial chain. What we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch across. And we're not going to worry about that handle for a second. So there's the second one. Once I've slip stitched across these 3 stitches that will coincide with our opening here, I'm then going to chain 1 and then come back up to my handle and slip stitch into that handle. Now you can see this looks very similar to this on this end here. Okay, and what I will do then is I will leave a bit of a tail, snip my yarn, and then I'll just pull this through here to secure it. Then I'm going to weave this end in, okay? And absolutely do not worry. I know you're thinking it looks really weird and uneven. You can always use this tail to anchor this down, but I need this opening here to feed that fabric through, okay? So here we have the basic look of the bag. Okay. So we can see it sits really nicely, and it's got this really cute strap. And if you wanted to, you could leave it absolutely like that, and you are good to go. If you're good with sewing, you can actually add a zipper here, and it would be really, really cute and ready to take off. But I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with this great fabric ribbon I have here. So I have cut off about 6 feet of this fabric ribbon. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half down its length, and then I'm going to feed it through the bag. Okay, so let me just pull it up here so we can see better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on one side and feed it in through that opening. And I want to make sure as it goes through, it does stay fairly uniform in where the fold is, just so that it stays fairly consistent. I want to pull through as much as I can because I don't want to have to worry about not getting far in enough and then have to pulling through all of those spaces. So the idea is, I know this part is not very glamorous, but we're pulling this through all the way till you get to a length that's somewhat happy for you. What I want to do here is I want to tie a knot somewhere around the end here. And what that's going to do is that's going to create a bit of a stop there. Perfect. If you feel like you need a thicker knot, then I would definitely say go ahead and do that. You can always just, with a little bit of thread, just sew it down for sure, but I feel pretty good about that. You can then trim this down if you want. You can add some embellishments, whatever you like. So for now, I've got this anchored down. And so now my ribbon is coming up the inside of the bag. So now I'm going to make sure, again, that I stay consistent. Yeah, as best you can. I mean, this is not perfect science. And so now I will come back up and proceed to feed this through my handle. So that means I'm going to come in, or I'm going to come out, I should say. I'm going to pull that through and then make sure that the fold stays okay. Like that. So you can see the effect on the side that that has, and then it just also offers a little bit more solidification to the handle. Now it's completely up to you if you want to go in and out through every single loop. I think for me, because of the look I want, I am indeed going to do it. You can do it every second one, every third one, whatever aesthetic you are happy with. So I've just come out here, so I go into the next spacing and I feed it in through there. And then as I get close to the end, I make sure that it's staying nicely folded. And of course, this is completely add-on embellishment. You can leave it as is, as I've said before, but look at how good that that's coming out. It's just adding this extra really pretty texture to it. And I love it. So go ahead and finish that off. And I'm going to keep weaving mine in and out. And I'll meet you at the end and show you our fabulous grab-and-go bag, which is May's Gift of Crochet. And here it is, guys. I'm so happy with the way it all turned out. Here is your grab-and-go bag. And I've just added a little closure there. And you can see how the ends came out so nicely at the end of the handle. So all I did here was I just sewed on a cute little button. It's one that I had here and matched perfectly. And then I just did a chain length. I did 20 chains. And then I just sewed it or attached it to the side here. I put the button and it created this great little closure. And there it is. This project was done with just single crochet stitches. And you can see how the handle turned out so amazingly with the with that extra little ribbon that I had running through it. And I really like it because it just gives it this added touch. It looks a little bit more solid. And it also makes for a great stylization on the end there. And there you have it. I have my phone and my wallet in there, and I can put it across my body, and I love it. It just took me a weekend to make. This has been super, super fun for me to make. It's very basic, simple stitches, and look at the things that you can come up with. It's all about how creative you get with the way you use your stitches. So guys, this is May's Gift of Crochet, the grab and go bag. It crisscrosses over your, it's also a crossbody bag. You can wear it crisscross across you, which is the way I like to wear small bags like this, or you can just simply wear it as a regular shoulder bag. And this ribbon here measured 6 feet or 60 inches, but this chain here that I created only measured 36 inches. So it just goes to show you that when you're weaving these things in and out, you will lose some of your length. So I always say cut more than you think you need, and you'll always have enough to spare. So guys, I am wishing you a wonderful new month. I hope you have as much fun making this as I did. Don't forget to click subscribe, and you'll stay up to date on all of our free tutorials. And if you know any friends that would like to do some of these projects as well, please do feel free to share it. And you can also follow us on Instagram at the Stitch Sessions. And it's actually _stitch_sessions, I believe. We'll leave a link down below, and you can see a lot more of our crochet shenanigans. All right, guys, thanks so much for crocheting along with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next session. Take care and happy crocheting.